policies. And the county governments, what they do is basically to oversee service delivery. And right now, the hottest topic in health systems is actually universal health resources, service delivery, and last but not least, we have the health financing function. So what does a country do when it basically has plans to improve its health system? The country has, number one, to recognize the universal health coverage framework, which basically encompasses the pillars of universal health coverage. We are looking at legal, as I said earlier, on health financing policy and etc. Then secondly, the country also has to recognize that each country is unique, because universal health coverage recognizes that the context of a country, each country is unique. So the country has to actually do an analysis to identify where are we, what do we need to do to get to that particular place. It is not about the model that will be sufficient for that activity. We are looking at meeting the needs of the healthcare needs of the citizenry of that country. Bringing us down to now the National Hospital Insurance Fund, which was appointed as the primary instrument for delivering universal health care and actually overseeing the transformation. Through the three goals of universal health coverage, one of the gaps that the presidency realized is that the healthcare services, the essential healthcare services, the primary healthcare services, we do not have them across the 47 counties. Another gap that was also realized as well was that the quality of health services was in need, and some of them were not consistent with good medical practices. The other gap also that was also realized is that Kenyans are exposed to financial risk and catastrophic expenditure. We have 1 million Kenyans approximately who overspend on healthcare and they experience poverty. And for one reason or the other, they have to sell their cars, their houses, and that kind of thing, actually experiencing catastrophic expenditure where they have to spend over and beyond their income levels. So those are the gaps that the universal health coverage context analysis for the country realized. And the government, through the presidency of the had one to actually deliver universal health coverage in Kenya. So that is the rough status of the health system in Kenya. And universal health coverage will be packaged in two phases. We have phase one that ran between 2018 and 2019. If time allows, I should be able to break it down. And then we have the phase two that is currently ongoing, which should run is running from 2019 to 2021. That to answer the first question. I should invite my colleague to say something. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Professor Ntelimo Makoha. My name is Professor Ntelimo Makoha from AMREF Health Africa, and I'm representing Dr. Kilinji, the GCEO of AMREF Health Africa. I'm the Deputy Vice Chancellor of AMREF International University, which is a university owned by AMREF Health Africa. The minister's speech and the other speakers gave a very good overview of the status of our health services, and I will not labor into that. I'll go straight into the gaps, particularly in the application of technologies and innovation in the health system. One key observation that was made during the outbreak of this COVID-19 pandemic is that the attendance to health facilities, to hospitals, suddenly went down. Was this due to fear? Of the COVID-19? as the hand washing that is now widely applied. And this most likely contributed to the reduction of the visits to health facilities. But ordinarily, we do not apply these technologies of prevention, of disease prevention, and see the effects of what transformation those simple technologies can do. We should not wait for the shocks of pandemics to start applying these simple technologies, which can be widely made available. Problem that we need perhaps to address in the health system is the application of ICT, information and communication. We seem to have, again, a big gap. For instance, a key intervention in this pandemic is vaccination. But we seem to have all the wrong information, most widely spread through the social media. It's about 2 centuries ago now when Edward Jenner and Louis Pasteur laid down the basis of application of vaccines in preventing infections. And yet now, in the 21st century, we are able to spread a lot of wrong information that vaccinations don't work or they will cause all types of harm. And that interferes with services. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Makoha, and Yenda Machage from NHIF for your insight regarding our panel discussion today. So finally, I think we have Dr. Jose Lono, and Dr. Lono, I want to give you just 1 minute to give your insight regarding the discussion that you're having on the overview of healthcare in this country. Please, just if you can hear, just join the conversation so that we can be able to wrap up. We are running.
Can you hear me? But we bear about 26% of the global disease. So we are bearing way more than the population we have. And we only benefit from about 1 or 2% of global health expenditure. So that gives you the sense of how acutely urgent it is to invest more in healthcare. So if you look at the Kenyan health system, I think a critical gap, and to answer your question directly, is that the fiscal space for health is very limited. If you look at the general government health expenditure in health, it's at best 2.1% of GDP, which is, far short of the 5% that is required to achieve universal health coverage. So we really need to, invest more into healthcare. I think a lot of the other things within the health system, whether it's human resources or health products and technologies or health information system, are dependent almost entirely on how much we actually prioritize and actually invest into healthcare. So I think the gap is still significant from a health financing perspective. And coming closer to a critical theme of this conference around innovation and technology. Again, as a country, we have very ambitious plans in terms of how much we should invest. Our Health Act and our existing laws demand that we invest at least 2% of our GDP into R&D, and about 30% of that should go into health research, for instance. So that means we should be investing anywhere in excess of 5 billion shillings within the health landscape. Those are estimates from 2019. But out of that estimated about 5 billion shillings in 2019, I think we invest in. So, for instance, if you look at the healthcare budget, we need to ask ourselves, what are we investing the little resource we have? I have been involved in work looking at the return on investment on many healthcare interventions, and some of them that stand out include community healthcare, where we know now that if you put in 1 shilling into community health, you'll get about 10 shillings back into the economy, which is a very strong return on investment that you don't see in many other levels of the healthcare system or in many other sectors in the economy, whether it's infrastructure, mining, etc. So there is a very strong case for investing in healthcare as an investment and not just as a cost item. I don't think we get a tenfold return on investment in many other sectors. So I think, in summary, my contribution is to say, there's an acutely big gap in investment. We need to just be deliberate about investing more in healthcare, and then looking at that investment and saying, are we putting it where it counts the most? Let's put it in the most cost-effective interventions, which at this point include, community health work, immunization, and primary healthcare. And I think, we just need to look at the evidence and make the right decision based on the data that exists. Thank you.
to chair the special session 1. Welcome. Mpigeni makofi akikuja tafadhali. Mpaka afike. Let's continue. Thank you very much.
Let me just remove this. Our chief guest, Mr. Eric Wafuko, Chief Administrative Secretary, the National Treasury and Planning, who is representing the Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury and Planning, Dr. Sarah Ruto, Administrative Secretary, Ministry of Education, representing the CS, Ministry of Education, Dr. Oscar Magenya, representing the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries and Cooperatives, Dr. Charles Nzioka, representing the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Health, Development Partners present, KIPPRA board members, Executive Director KIPPRA and staff, representatives from both levels of government, civil society organizations, private sector, academia, researchers, youth representatives, distinguished resource persons and delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning. Yeah, I'm delighted to be here today at this opening session of the 4th KIPPRA Annual Regional Conference 2021, and I'm chairing this session on behalf of the Principal Secretary, State Department for Planning, Mr. Saitoti Torome, who is on another official duty, so I bring you his greetings. My name is Catherine Mwoki. I'm the Economic Planning Secretary in the State Department for Planning. ST&I is close to my heart. I was for this particular area. The conversation that we're having covered and official open Chief Administrative Secretary, CS Peter Muya. I also want to recognize Dr. Charles Nzioka, Ministry of Health, representing Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Mutahi Kagwe.
I also want to recognize Madam Catherine Mwoki, who is representing our Principal Secretary, Mr. Saitoti Torome, State Department of Planning. I also want to recognize Dr. Linda Musumba, KIPPRA Board Chair, KIPPRA board members who are present here and also listening to us virtually, development partners present, representatives from ministry level, KIPPRA staff, members of press, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I take this opportunity to welcome you all to this conference. We are grateful that you found time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. The conference is organized as a platform for stakeholders to exchange views, share experience, and learn from each other as we build the knowledge-based economy. We have publicized the conference through various media platforms, and our hope is that all stakeholders will actually participate in the conference. So, ladies and gentlemen, as per our KIPPRA Act 15 of 2006, KIPPRA is mandated to organize symposia, conferences, workshops, and other meetings to promote exchange of views on issues related to public policy research and analysis. It is for that reason that today we are gathering here in this conference. For every conference, we choose a theme that focuses on public policy, and this year, as discussed, as also indicated by our chair for this session, we are focusing on science, technology, innovation, and its role in improving quality of life by enhancing the implementation of the Big Four agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, science, technology, and innovation is a complex sector, and in 3 days, we cannot actually cover everything. So in this period, we have chosen 8 themes. We are trying to explore where we are, the status. We are also looking at the milestones that we have come through in policy, institution, and legislative framework. We are also looking at development of human capital, which is necessary to drive a knowledge-based economy. How far we are also with building a strong innovation system, including adequately funding R&D, and also putting in place appropriate infrastructure. We are also not forgetting to look at cross-cutting issues, including data, gender, and persons with disability, and all this in a quest for building resilience in various sectors, including manufacturing, micro and small enterprises, agriculture, among other sectors. We are also showcasing various innovations, cutting across various sectors, including transport. We have motorized mkokoteni, advanced technology with assistive devices, supporting farmers with access to information, and also in health sector, the innovation on ventilators, among other innovations that you can see displayed in the virtual system that we are using today. Ladies and gentlemen, as an institution, we are also in the space of STNI. We undertake research in generating evidence for policy advice. We have capacity building programs that are geared towards equipping youth with skills for policy analysis and research. And we also bring together stakeholders like today to exchange views which build knowledge. I also want to say that as an institution, we've been recognized as the second best think tank in Sub-Saharan Africa. And recently also the Directorate of National Cohesion and Values has awarded KIPPRA a certificate of compliance with matters national values and principles. I wish all of us fruitful deliberations, stay safe and keep safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ngugi. Can we give another round of applause? Yeah, and congratulations to KIPPRA for doing us proud in the awards that they have received. It's now my pleasure to invite the chair of KIPPRA board, Dr. Linda Musumba, to come and give her opening remarks. Karibu, Dr. Musumba. Let's clap for her as she comes up, please. Good morning to all who are gathered here and those who are also following us online. I'd like to recognize Honorable Eric Wafuko, who's the Chief Administrative Secretary in the National Treasury, representing our Cabinet Secretary here today, the Honorable Ambassador Ukur Yatani. I'd like to recognize Dr. Sarah Ruto, who is the Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Education, representing the CS, Professor George Magoha. I'd also like to recognize Dr. Oscar Magenya, who's representing the Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries and Cooperatives. I'd like to recognize Dr. Nzioka, who's here, the Director for Health, Policy and Research at the Ministry of Health, who's here representing the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Health, the Honorable Mutahi Kagwe. I'd like to recognize Madam Catherine Mwoki, who's the Economic Planning Secretary at the National Treasury, representing the Principal Secretary, State Department for Planning, Mr. Saitoti Torome. All heads of divisions within government, the two levels of government who are present here, representatives from development partners who are present here, the KIPPRA board members, some who are here present with us on the front row here, and others who are following online, the Executive Director, KIPPRA staff, members of the press, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and especially also our youth who are gathered here with us in the conference room, which is adjacent to this one, and are going through their youth conference this morning. Good morning. It gives me a lot of pleasure to welcome you all to our fourth KIPPRA Annual Regional Conference, Karibuni Sana. Our aim is to hold the conference in a different county each year. However, unfortunately, due to various constraints posed by COVID-19, this year we were not able to go to a county outside Nairobi, and thus we are holding it in Nairobi. Although Nairobi is a county no less. To ensure we abide by the COVID-19 protocols at all times, we have given opportunity to stakeholders to participate with us, physically ensuring the COVID-19 protocols are observed, as well as virtually. For those who are physically present, let us abide. It is for our own good and the good of those who are around us. And for those who are watching, who are with us virtually, we hope that you do enjoy the conference as much as we're enjoying it here on the ground. Our KIPPRA Act, number 15 of 2006, mandates that we organize a conference annually to provide a platform to stakeholders to have a conversation with each other, learn from one another, and share experiences on prioritized policy issues. The conference this year, which focuses on science, technology, and innovation in enhancing delivery of the Big Four development agenda, which you're all aware of, is one of the long-term development, is captured in one of the long-term development blueprints in Kenya, that is the Vision 2030, which is a key foundation to achieving socio-economic transformation through a knowledge-based economy. The Big Four agenda, which is part of the third medium-term plan, is targeted at ensuring that there is adequate provision of basic needs to improve the quality of life for all Kenyans. During this conference, participants are therefore expected or urged to explore where more effort is required to ensure that ST&I play its role effectively as an enabler in supporting delivery of this agenda. Sometimes ST&I looks far off from our daily lives, But science really does help us by accumulating knowledge necessary to make personal decisions or choices in our daily lives. This includes in our kitchen, agriculture, health, and recreation. We apply science in practical purposes to improve the quality of life. When African leaders met for the first Africa Forum for ST&I, held in Nairobi in 2012, they agreed to ensure that ST&I is used to solve societal problems such as health, water, ICT, energy, and agriculture to improve the well-being of people in harnessing ST&I for sustainable development. Science also helps us in generating evidence that informs policy direction in achieving sustainable development. When KIPPRA undertakes objective research, it generates evidence to inform policy advice shared with the policymakers. In the COVID-19 period, policymakers are guided by science in coming up with measures to mitigate the spread of the virus and support those who fall ill. Since yesterday, there were very interesting sessions yesterday. Honorable Wafuko and all dignitaries who are gathered here and members who are everywhere. There are very interesting presentations made yesterday as well as this morning, and I believe going on. Some of the things, of course, that came to my mind include the fact that for those of us who read Things Fall Apart, of course, you're aware and you're familiar with Okonkwo, who was a principal character in that novel by Chinua Achebe. And one of the most interesting things about Okonkwo was that we were told that his barns were ever full. His barns were ever full. And that's why he got an elevated status at a very young age. And I asked myself, what exactly did Okonkwo do to ensure such a robust yield? Could he have been using science, to make this happen? Then we have, of course, Israel, which is a trailblazer in the use of science, technology, and innovation to be able to convert what is at best an arid area to make it an area that is bountiful with food. Something, of course, which we have also tried in our Galana Kulalu, and some of the reports that we get from there in the recent past are quite encouraging. Today, I have read the newspaper this morning that says the BJ50 from Laikipia County, which we talked about yesterday, has now been approved to receive number plates. So if you're seated there thinking that the BJ50 doesn't look like your Toyota, doesn't look like your Nissan, and you're wondering why are they producing something that doesn't look familiar in this day and age, keep wondering, because tomorrow, when they improve on the design and in years to come, it's something that we shall be very, very proud of, that we have a vehicle that has been made in this country. People have argued that the technology that has gone into making these motor vehicles is not new. People have said there's nothing new. Why reinvent the wheel? But the thing is this, up to and until the time we're able to get parts like other vehicles we may be familiar with, this is what we have. We're going to start with. It's going to solve problems in our country. And I can assure you that, I visualize it as a vehicle that can be used by parents who are collecting their children from school. If you have a church, you can buy your pastor if they don't have a vehicle so that they can serve you better. There are so many uses to which we can put this. Something else that has come to mind, during the COVID pandemic, in terms of the universal health coverage, some of the positive things that have happened with the era of frequently washing our hands, sanitizing, etc., we have read in the press very, very encouraging reports that we have had a concomitant drop in communicable diseases. We have read that people who suffer from asthma, there are those who've reported that because of wearing the mask, they have not had an attack in a year or more. We have seen that our children who now frequently wash their hands have now improved health because they don't frequently fall ill as a result of diseases that they had before. My final point has to do with something that I saw the elders do at home when we intended to make a borehole. And they came with their wires. Some of you may be familiar with this. And they were, panning them. And this is to locate exactly where the water is. So I know that that's a technology that many may not be familiar with. However, as a result of the elders pointing to exactly where on the ground the water is, the water was exactly there. We have also heard of people trying to locate where water is in other areas severally, but then not able to find. What technology is that? What's our attitude also towards traditional technologies? So in this conference, as we progress, it will be interesting to know whether sometimes our attitudes also have an impact on encouraging the growth of ST&I in our country. As I conclude, I wish to thank the KIPPRA staff and management, KIPPRA board members, our esteemed stakeholders and partners, and more specifically our parent ministry for the continued support and for participating in our conference. With those few remarks, I do wish all of us a fruitful engagement and karibuni sana. Thank you. Let's give Dr. Musumba another round of applause for a very insightful and encouraging remarks in the context of science, technology, and innovation. Our next speaker will be Dr. Sarah Ruto, the Chief Administrative Secretary, Minister of Education. And the topic of her talk will be the importance of education systems in development of human capital, science, technology, and innovation. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Ruto to the stage. Karibu sana, Daktari.
Good morning. Good morning. I come from education, so interaction is very important. Good morning. Yes, it is a pleasure to be here this morning and to represent Professor George Magoha, who had been invited to present this speech. So all protocols observed. I realize there are very many cabinet chief administrative secretaries, the leadership of KIPPRA, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Professor Magoha, he says that he's very happy to be invited to speak during the 4th KIPPRA Regional Conference, whose theme is Science, Technology, and Innovation in Enhancing the Delivery of the Big Four Agenda. I am informed that the aim of the conference is to share experiences on how science, technology, and innovation can be utilized to propel the country to a knowledge-based economy. Ladies and gentlemen, the conference is timely since it is in sync both with the vision and the mission of the Ministry of Education, where science, technology, and innovation are given a lot of emphasis. You might all be aware and know that we are now doing reforms that have ushered in the competency-based education. And in the competency-based education, there are 7 key competencies. And these are very aligned with what we are talking about. Because one of the competencies, for example, is problem solving, which does not need to start now. It starts very early on in PP1, PP2, when children are entering school, even before then. And so this is what the Ministry of Education is doing its role in ensuring that the attitude is inculcated throughout education and not waiting for the end product. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to announce that the Ministry of Education has developed a policy and legislative framework for education and training to align the human capital development needs of the country to the Constitution of Kenya 2010 and the Kenya Vision 2030. Some of these laws include the University Act of 2012, the Basic Education Act number 14 of 2013, that guides basic education institutions, colleges, Technical and Vocational Training Act of number 29 of 2013, that guides technical institutions and national polytechnics, the Science, Technology, and Innovation Act 2013 to guide issues of science, and the Early Education Act 2021. This is the new baby in the house that guides the operations of early childhood stages of education. These Act's policies show that the conceptualization is very clear. It is really about implementation. Ladies and gentlemen, during the formative years of independent Africa, leaders such as Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, Mwalimu Julius Nyerere of Tanzania, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda of Zambia, amongst others, valued education and placed it amongst their priority areas of development. The leaders recognized education since it is considered to be the engine of academic, cultural, economic, socio-political, and technological development. Therefore, with this scenario, and following the same spirit, our country has witnessed unprecedented growth in education at all levels. Ladies and gentlemen, the current state of poverty of many countries in Africa has been a subject of debate among scholars and policymakers, not only due to lack of capital, but more importantly, because they lack adequate knowledge and skills to enhance productivity and increase national output. In fact, many African countries are blessed with different kinds of natural resources which could be exploited to realize positive levels of development. Unfortunately, transformation continues to elude the continent, mainly due to human capital constraints in the form of knowledge, skills, and technical expertise to exploit the natural resources so as to promote growth and economic transformation. Human capital has been recognized as a critical resource to the development of any nation, as it is at the center of growth in education, health, labor, and employment. In today's world, human capital development is crucial for attaining a sustainable economic growth and development. Higher education is a prerequisite for the production of highly competent experts, which in turn contributes to the development of organizations and the economy at large. And at this point, it is good to remind ourselves that higher education, we must always remember its tripartite functions, that a university lecturer is called to teach, to do research, to do community service. And when one of those fails, then higher education fails to do what it needs to do and to contribute to the development we are talking about. There are various studies that stress the essential role of education as the most important production factor in increasing human capital as a determinant of economic growth. Indeed, education helps individuals to acquire knowledge which encourages participation in groups, opens doors to job opportunities, develops social interactions, makes individuals aware of their rights, improves health, and reduces poverty. The human capital base of a country is measured both by the education system and the level of its citizens, which is further an indicator of the stage of technological and economic development of the country. The availability of highly skilled workforce has been known to promote research and innovation in a country. Moreover, high quality of labor raises efficiency and effectiveness of a country. Ladies and gentlemen, in order to improve on human capital in a country like ours, we have kept emphasizing on training and retooling of teachers, proper motivation of personnel, and allocation of more funds to the Ministry of Education for intensification of research, amongst others. There is also need to align education to the regional labor markets for employability and for relevance. We have also given priority to education reforms as a prerequisite for acquiring new skills and making education to be relevant. Indeed, This is evident with the introduction of the competency-based curriculum. And as you may all be aware, that we are going to have the grade 5 students joining, students who are in grade 4 moving on to grade 5 in the phase-in, phase-out of the competency-based curriculum. Moreover, the gap between the genders should be bridged to ensure all Kenyans participate in education equally. Higher education institutions and regional governments should take steps to significantly expand higher education opportunities for all, and especially for the working age adults. We should increase enrollment and expand retention and success rates at all levels of education. In conclusion, Professor Magoha wishes to sincerely thank the organizers of the events and, of course, to the participants who are here and online for listening to his speech. Thank you very much.
Let us give another hand of applause. Thank you very much, Dr. Sarah Ruto, the Chief Administrative Secretary, Ministry of Education, representing the CS Education and articulating very clearly the importance of the education systems in development of human capital, science, technology, and innovation. Kindly give our regards to the CS. We appreciate that he honored our invitation. It's now my pleasure to invite the next speaker, representing the CS Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries and Cooperatives. The speaker will be Dr. Oscar Magenya, and he'll be speaking on the role of science, technology, and innovation in enhancing food security and nutrition in Kenya. Please let us welcome him with a hand of applause. Karibu sana, Dr. Magenya.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Madam MC. I'm Dr. Oscar Magenya. I work as the Director of Research and Innovation in the Ministry of Agriculture. I'm here to represent my CS. And maybe just to start I would like to acknowledge the Honorable Wafuko, who is the Chief Administrative Secretary, the National Treasury Planning, representing the CS Treasury, Dr. Sarah Ruto, CS Education, Dr. Linda Musumba, Board Chair KIPPRA, Ms. Catherine Mwoki, State Department for Planning, representing the PS Planning, the KIPPRA Board, Dr. Ross Ngugi, Executive Director of KIPPRA, and all distinguished guests, all protocols observed. Our CS Cabinet Secretary, Peter Munya, Honorable Peter Munya, would have loved to be here today, but because of some urgent matters, he was not able to come, and so asked me to represent him. And so I'll read his remarks that he was to present during this conference. And the CS says this: I'm delighted to be here today to talk on the role of STI in enhancing food security and nutrition in Kenya during this 4th annual KIPPRA regional conference. And he starts by saying that Kenya's agriculture is central to meeting the challenges of feeding a growing population. We project that in the next, before we reach our Vision 2030, the 9 years that are remaining, we will be expected to generate food that is of quality and sufficient to be able to feed the growing population on very limited resources like arable land and water and other resources. So The agriculture is central to meeting the challenges of feeding a growing population, creating wealth, reducing poverty, and managing the degradation of natural resources. My ministry contributes to food and nutrition security, raw materials for agro-industry, employment creation, and foreign exchange earnings. It therefore remains a major economic pillar that addresses the Vision 2030 agenda. Agriculture will contribute effectively to these national goals if continued emphasis is put on the positive factors that underpinned the remarkable agricultural growth realized since 2003. Further, concerted efforts must be made to address the country's vulnerability to climate change and other external shocks, as well as a need to initiate policy and institutional reforms to address globalization, constitutional, and other changes in the sector. It is worth noting that these are achievable through effective agricultural research system. The government recognizes the important role agricultural technology development and application can play in transforming and modernizing agriculture and specifically food production. Currently, we are implementing the agricultural sector transformation and growth strategy, which is a 10-year strategy that is supposed to modernize the agricultural sector in the country, and all players and actors in the agricultural space or food security space have to conform to how we focus this country for agricultural production and have to align themselves with this strategy of 2019 and up to 2029. This strategy addresses the challenges in the agricultural sector to deliver the 10% annual economic growth that is envisaged under the economic pillar of Vision 2030. More so, the Constitution of Kenya also acknowledges the importance of proper coordination and synergies in agricultural research, and therefore placed it under responsibility of the national government, while it placed services to farmers through agricultural extension services under the county governments. Presently, agricultural production is negatively affected by constraints and changing factors that include increasing population pressure, unsustainable land and environment management practices, dependency on an unreliable rain-fed agriculture, inaccessible and high input costs, climate change resulting in severe erratic weather patterns, and emerging pests and diseases. The last one is on the decreasing access to production resources such as credit and technology amidst the ever-increasing poverty levels. The adoption of agricultural technologies, ladies and gentlemen, and innovations can lead to increased productivity and quality along the agricultural value chains. We also appreciate that for an organization like KIPPRA, that will depend on the quality of the data that is generated for agriculture from sectors like agricultural research. It will be very critical to the analysis that happens in KIPPRA. However, agricultural research is constrained by weak research extension farmer linkages, weak interdisciplinary collaborations and partnerships in agricultural research, inadequate capacity for research, slow adoption of new and emerging technologies, and gender and socioeconomic aspects of agriculture. A logical and well-founded, solution-oriented and impactful agricultural research system is therefore pivotal to addressing these challenges. And in order to address the above constantly changing factors, ladies and gentlemen, it is important that effective and efficient agricultural research has to be developed that is more dynamic too and well coordinated in a continuous process. The implementation of the National Agricultural Research System policy that was enacted in 2012, that is currently being used, did not succeed as intended by the policy due to the fact that it became impossible along the way to bring together all institutions and stakeholders in the agricultural research system. The NAS policy that my ministry is therefore reviewing currently is to streamline, rationalize, and put in a system that is consultative, efficient, and effective, and that takes into account economies of scale to not only use the current scientific, human, and physical capacities, but also position Kenya as a hub for agricultural research and development in the region. We are currently reviewing the NAS policy, which looks at the whole agricultural research ecosystem. In this ecosystem, we have the public research organizations, which include CALRO. We have the universities, particularly universities that have faculties of agriculture, more than 28 universities in the country, both public and private. We have industry and international research centers that all do portions of research. And we think it is important that we bring all these actors together to be able to harmonize and coordinate all of us to be able to focus more critically on the national goals of attaining food and nutrition security. And therefore, to create an enabling environment for a vibrant agricultural research industry that contributes to the overarching national policies of economic growth and wealth creation, poverty reduction, gender equity, increased productivity, improved livelihoods, environmental sustainability, and eventually sustainable development. In addition, the NAS policy that I've just talked about is to promote an innovative, commercially oriented, and modern agriculture sector, and to facilitate the development of hybrid crops, livestock, and fish in line with the aspirations of the Big Four Agenda, Vision 2030, the SDGs, the KIPPRA and Malabo Declaration, and the Agenda 2063 of AU, and the SDGs that we are focusing on to attain by 2030. Over the past decade, technological, political, and socioeconomic factors affecting agricultural research institutions have changed, and they have changed significantly. While the information and communication technology revolution has broadened access to knowledge and information, the private sector has become an essential player. At the same time, agricultural development is increasingly concerned with diversifying, adding value, improving product quality, emphasis on food safety, equity in economic growth, and capturing and creating markets and addressing gender parity. So if you look through, right now we are focused mainly on having dialogues on food systems that are meant to help in the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals that is a conference coming in September. And so we are looking at how we can integrate all the actors to be able to feed into the processes that we are doing for agricultural research in the ministry. And one of the areas that we would like to focus on is how do we include all segments of society, the women and the youth, in how to focus on particular interventions that address the women and the youth. And the other one is how to look at the intersection of agriculture and energy and how to improve our energy supply, because it's not just enough to how to produce food, but we have to have food that can be cooked and cooked with clean energy. And so that is how we are bringing in the area of energy to provide energy for our rural women folk, and that has very clear outcomes on health and how the rural societies catch up with outcomes on health. Further, the current shift in global agricultural research towards integrated agricultural research for development and emphasis on demand-driven research calls for a major adjustment in the way research is organized and managed. At the Ministry of Agriculture, we are changing the processes to adapt the Kenyan agricultural research system into a more dynamic, innovative, responsive, and well-coordinated system that is guided by a common vision, mission, and goal, and thus to have a greater, clear, programmatic framework. Before I finalize on these remarks, I would like to say that we are lagging behind a little bit in agriculture research and in research as a whole because of funding. If you look through the Malabo Declaration, the Maputo Declaration, and how the Kenyan government, we have committed to have a percentage committed to agriculture and then to agriculture research, we still realize that we cannot rely on donors alone to be able to finance our research, which in most cases brings the issue of how do we prioritize our research agenda if we have being told by certain quarters. So we are looking at how we can sustainably develop a funding mechanism that can fund our own agricultural research and also be in charge of how we develop our agenda for agricultural research that supports and fits into the national goals of attaining food and nutrition security. And so with these few remarks, I'm happy to be part of this conference and wish you the best as you deliberate on this important area of science, technology, and innovation. And so we are happy to be part of this and to be recognized and to be invited. And so we will partner together because all of us are supportive of the Kenyan government and how we attain our goals as a nation. Thank you very much.
Let's acknowledge Dr. Magenya with an applause. Thank you very much, Dr. Oscar Magenya, representing the CS Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries, and Cooperation. We want to thank you for a very articulate presentation on the role of science, technology, and innovation in enhancing food security and nutrition in Kenya. Please give our gratitude to the CS for honoring our invitation. Before I call our chief guest, I just want once again to acknowledge the previous speakers who contextualized the subject matter of science, technology, and innovation and gave us some very key insights. I will not be recapping that because I am sure that you will be given those presentations as part of the package and the report of this particular workshop, so I will not recap that. I'm sure we were all listening. But I really just want to acknowledge the Executive Director, Dr. Rose Ngugi. Once again, acknowledge the KIPPRA Board Chairperson, Dr. Linda Musumba, and acknowledge Dr. Sarah Ruto, Chief Administrative Secretary, Ministry of Education, representing the CS Education, and to acknowledge our previous speaker, Dr. Oscar Magenya, representing the CS Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries, and Cooperation. Can we give them all a round of applause? So we are now moving to the climax of this particular opening session, and it is now my pleasure and honor and humble duty to invite the chief guest, Dr. Eric Wafuko Simiyu, the Chief Administrative Secretary, National Treasury and Planning, who is representing the Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury and Planning, to give us the keynote address and officially open this conference. And immediately after our chief guest has read his speech, I will ask the main moderator of the session to be on standby because I will not speak again. He will be able to tell us what next after this. Karibu sana sir, and thank you for honoring and being part of this meeting. Karibu.
Good morning. It's great for me to be back here today. And looks like Bomas, KIPPRA, and we have some association of sorts. I bring you greetings from the CS for National Treasury and Planning, Ambassador Ukuri Atani, who I represent here today to give his message of goodwill to this noble task today. I would like to ask, do the extraordinary and ask you just to stand, if you will. Okay? I think just stand and stretch. Don't hit your neighbor, then you can sit. Just off the cuff remarks, I would like to say that indeed yesterday we logged in to the conference that is going on. And so we followed through the sessions that were there yesterday, and they were very, 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 very fruitful sessions indeed. And we know that tomorrow is another day. We just want to wish those who are participating in the conference God's blessings as you continue to reflect on important subject for the country and indeed for Africa. Allow me then, without much ado, to go to the speech written on behalf of my boss, the CS for National Treasury and Planning. Professor George Magoha, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Education, represented here today by Sarah Ruto, my colleague, Chief Administrative Secretary. Honorable Peter Munya, the Cabinet Secretary for the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries and Cooperatives, represented here today by Oscar Muganya. And the Honorable Mutai Kagwe, the Cabinet Secretary for the Ministry of Health, that is represented here today by Dr. Charles Nzioka. The PS for Planning, State Department for Planning, Torome Saitoti, represented today here by the EAPS, Catherine Moki. The principal secretaries that are present here today and watching and following online, national government officials that are present here today, and county government representatives also that are following the proceedings here. We want to recognize the KIPPRA board led by Dr. Linda Musumba for welcoming us here quite warmly. With the director roles, we want to say thank you for calling us here today to join the event. And so for students who are following behind, and for invited guests that are here and also following online, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am delighted to join you today in this fourth KIPPRA annual regional conference, which seeks to discuss a critical policy issue on the role of science, technology, and innovation in building a knowledge-based economy and enhancing delivery of the Big Four development agenda. As you may be aware, the government in its long-term development blueprint, the Vision 2030, commits to intensify application of the science, technology, and innovation in raising productivity and efficiency across the three pillars. The ST&I is an enabler and therefore a key foundation in transforming Kenya into a newly industrializing middle-income country that provides a high quality of life to all citizens in a clean and secure environment And that's the Vision 2030 that we all ascribe to. We are halfway, as you know, in implementing that blueprint. And therefore, it is right time to have a conversation in identifying aspects that require more focus in enabling the ST&I to play its role. In addition, the world today is transitioning to a knowledge-based economy, recognizing that in addition to capital and labor, which are the traditional factors of production, knowledge is an essential input in enhancing growth. While capital and labor are considered as scarce, knowledge keeps growing. A key pillar to knowledge-based economy is indeed ST&I. We must be able to undertake scientific analysis and apply new technology in addressing societal problems. We must also innovate to change the lives of the citizens. And ladies and gentlemen, you will all agree with me that COVID-19 has challenged the resilience of our society, demanding us to be innovative in changing the way we do things to cope with the pandemic. For example, this conference being held amid the COVID-19 pandemic is able to bring together participants from all over the world because virtual conferencing has become the new normal as a platform for engagement. Like many other countries in the globe, Kenya has experienced the effects of COVID-19. By 17th June 2021, the number of reported confirmed cases of COVID-19 has increased to 177,282, with the total deaths reported at 3,434, subject to in a latest, at the time of writing. This indeed had been captured. That said, it's important to underscore the swift response by government in putting in place measures since March 2020 to mitigate, contain, and cushion the vulnerable from the pandemic. Recently, the government started the vaccination drive, and as at 17th of June 2021, 992,418 people had received the first COVID-19 vaccine dose, and 171,743 have so far received the second dose, which is still in progress. Further, the government proposes to allocate about Kenya shillings 14.3 billion in the financial year 2021-2022 to facilitate further rollout of vaccines in creating herd immunity. These measures are expected to slow down further spread of the virus and have all get back to their feet. Ladies and gentlemen, in the Kenya Vision 2030, the government commits to have in place the policy, legal, and institutional framework that supports the ST&I sector. This has informed significant efforts towards development of scientific and technological infrastructure, policy and legislative frameworks, and setting up of specific specialized institutions. Additionally, there has been effort to develop technical and entrepreneurial skills in ensuring essential prerequisites are put in place. For example, we already have the ST&I policy, the 2012, and ST&I Act, the 2013, that provide a platform to leverage ST&I in transforming the economy. In addition, other policy frameworks have been developed and others drafted. This include the bioscience policy, the atomic energy policy, the nanotechnology policy, Kenya Space Science and Technology Policy, and Natural Products Policy. Various institutions have also been set up, including the Kenya National Innovation Agency, the National Research Fund, the National Commission for Science and Technology and Innovation, the Kenya Space Agency, the Nuclear Power and Energy Agency. In addition to the above, is the designing of the ST&I Statistics Observatory for capturing, developing, sharing, and storing the ST&I information. The first National Innovation Survey has also been carried out. In the third MTP, the medium-term plan, the government has identified various flagship projects in strengthening infrastructure for high-quality research and technology development. The key focus being nanoscience, space technology and development, nuclear technology, energy technologies, biotechnology, and indigenous technologies. In addition, the government is committed to strengthening the policy, institutional, and the legal frameworks. Ladies and gentlemen, now to the Big Four agenda. I wish to first note that the Big Four agenda is key towards the implementation of the Kenya Vision 2030. It focuses on sustenance in access and availability of basic needs in uplifting the livelihoods of Kenyans. This includes enhancing food and nutrition security, achieving universal health care, providing affordable housing, and supporting growth of the manufacturing sector to create jobs. Access to adequate basic needs is not only a core value of economic development, it is also part of what we ascribe to in the National Value and Principles on Sustainable Development. You cannot achieve sustainable development if you are not able to meet the basic needs of the people. In health, a key focus for government is on non-communicable diseases such as cancer, so as to reduce the burden of treatment on Kenyans. Kenya is also making steps towards nuclear technology, which can help timely diagnosis and effective treatment of cancer. At the moment, Kenya imports radioisotopes for cancer treatment from South Africa. And with a research reactor, the country can manage to produce adequate material without having to rely on imports. In the budget of the financial year 2021 to 2022, the government proposes to allocate Kenya shillings 450 million for the cyber knife radiotherapy, and allocate further Kenya shillings 350 million towards the establishment of 2 cancer centers. In agriculture, a lot is happening in ensuring there is availability of adequate and quality food. For example, in addressing nutrition, the government enacted food fortification legislation in the year 2012, providing for the addition of vitamin A to oils and fats, wheat and maize flour. Fortification is an innovation to improve food security and nutrition of the communities. To accelerate manufacturing, the government has enacted the Special Economic Zones Act of 2015 in providing a framework for the establishment of the special economic zones, as well as industrial and technology parks. The parks are aimed at fostering collaboration between the government, universities, and the private sector in enhancing development, transfer, and commercialization of technology. In the financial year 2021 to 2022, the budget that we have proposed, the government has proposed to set aside Kenya shillings 8 billion for the special economic zones, as well as the industrial parks, which include Athi River Textile Hub, Kenani Leather and Freeport, and the Industrial Park in Mombasa. Just aside, we have about 100 industrial parks proposed between Mombasa and the border with Uganda. The knowledge-based economy is dependent on skilled workforce. In education, therefore, a Pan-African University Institute of Basic Science and Technology and Innovation was established at Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology to undertake capacity building on STEM. In addition, 3 centers of excellence under the Southern and Eastern Africa Higher Education Centers for Excellence project are being established at Egerton, Moi, and Jaramogi Oginga Odinga universities. Kenya is rated very high with fintech, largely because of the M-Pesa. It has contributed significantly to deepening financial inclusion by facilitating money transactions. With M-Pesa, you can send remittances across the world through the partnership with Western Union as it operates across the world. Today, you can pay your bills at the comfort of your living room. Needless to say, you don't have to queue at the electricity house anymore or Nairobi Water for you to pay your electricity and water bills. This has reduced the transaction costs, and the multiplier effect can be felt in every corner of the country, with small businesses being set up to provide M-Pesa services. Ladies and gentlemen, that said, we need to do more in building our human capital and strengthening related infrastructure. The government proposes to allocate in the next financial year, 2021 to 2022, Kenya shillings 41 billion to fund various initiatives, including the ICT, government shared services, digital literacy program, national optic fiber, and last mile county connectivity network. I'm also aware we are yet to reach to the internationally accepted levels of funding research and development, the R&D. In the Vision 2030, the government recognizes the critical role played by the R&D in accelerating economic development. And so under the ST&I policy, the target was to mobilize at least an equivalent of 2% of the GDP annually from government, private sector, and other sources to fund the entire ST&I value chain. So during the second MTP period, research funds grew from 0.48% to 0.79% of the GDP. Within this provision for the financial year 2021 to 2022, the government proposes to allocate Kenya shillings 323 million for the National Research Fund. And so, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, I wish to encourage your full participation in this conference to enable KIPPRA, working together with other players in the field, to put together an informative policy document to guide the country in enhancing the implementation of the Big Four agenda through the application of the ST&I. I applaud KIPPRA and other like-minded institutions for developing such a timely conference in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic that has hit our economy hard. As such, the recommendations from this conference will go a long way in informing the various policy documents and government plans to build back better. I look forward to a successful conference, and I now declare this conference officially opened. God bless you and stay alive.
A round of applause for CAS National Treasury and Planning, Honorable Simiyu Wafuko. Thank you very much, sir, for that detailed address. Mpigeni makofi tena. Thank you very much. Indeed, the conference now is officially opened. I hope that you guys now can freely move. Yeah, initially it was a little bit tight. With that said, look at the person seated on your right, please. Just look at them. Look straight into their eyes. Are they doing okay? Okay? Are they doing okay? Yeah, to her. Oh, she's avoiding eye contact. I understand. And I believe maybe one of the reasons is because we haven't had a tea break. Yeah? So we want to take a short break, a short recess, but dignitaries, we really appreciate your presence at this particular moment. The conference will take a short recess for 15 minutes because I meant to understand some of us already went for tea. Okay, so if you went for your tea earlier on, you can just stay back. But thereafter, we will have another plenary session on matters ST&I infrastructure, and it will be chaired by Brian Giorgetino from Standard Group Media. So at this particular moment, I'll request all of us take some time off, grab a cup of tea, mbio with this baridi. We remove the baridi, then we'll be back here in quarter an hour. Thank you very much. God bless you. Yes, definitely. May I request a photo session with the dignitaries? So if we may just come here at the front. This is very important to capture the moment. I think I had missed it because of my young age. We take phone photos each and every single day. They go up. All right, so I request you, please go up. It's a photo, it's not a selfie, yeah? Okay.